I'm Reese, and this is Matt, and we are the Sidecar Guys. We're known as the Sidecar Guys as we've explored some of the world's most scenic environments, all on motorcycles with sidecars. But for our most recent trip, we decided to stick to UK soil to find out if you could really have an adventure in the UK. After a day of beekeeping and a pretty terrible camp spot in the Wye Valley, we were now halfway around the UK and had continued on to Exmoor National Park, where we'd be meeting up with Nathan Millward. Back in 2009, after only 2 days of planning, Nathan rode from Sydney to London on a 105cc retired Australian postal bike called Dorothy. After moving to Devon in recent years, we wanted to get his take on the local area and environment for motorcyclists.
So tell us about this place then. What we got in the southwest here? So we've got Exmoor.
We've got Nirvana, really.
Yeah.
I tell you,
Yeah.
it's the untapped riches of England.
Yeah.
I mean, I genuinely think I was out the other day with a group on the CT 125s, and from our place we went along the coast, did Linton, Porlock, the coastal roads along there, we did some lanes. Then we come inland and did Exmoor. For me, it's as fantastic a riding environment as anywhere, and there's no riders here. We didn't move down here to run motorcycles. We moved down here as a family because we thought it was a great place to raise a child, and it is, and it also makes a great place to ride a motorcycle. We've got so many good places to ride in England, haven't we? You know,
we have. That's what we're seeing on this trip, mate.
Peak District, Northumberland, Cumbria, Lake District. And I think if COVID learnt us one thing, taught us one thing, is that if we aren't able to go beyond the borders of our own nation, that doesn't mean to say we can't have a good adventure. The other week I was out at Hartland Quay, which is about half an hour from here, an hour away. Beautiful spot with some wicked trails, tricky trails. I was on a KTM 390 adventure, and I was going up a climb, and I stuffed it up, and I ended up sideways with a bike facing downhill on my own in the middle of nowhere. And it didn't matter that I was in Devon. It didn't matter if I could have been in Mongolia, but I was in that same sense of shit. What am I going to do to get out of this? I was still in that wilderness situation, that fight for survival with motorcycling, which shows you don't have to go around the world to experience.
There he goes, mate. Nathan Millward.
You missing?
I hadn't really sunk in yet, but now you've said it, I guess. Yeah, I'm starting to miss him.
Nathan's thoughts on adventure in the UK and the incredible riding to be done without leaving home shores were exactly what we found we'd been experiencing on this UK trip. But it hadn't come without its challenges, and compared to some of our overseas adventures, we'd certainly struggled to do some things, such as wild camp along the way, which for the majority of the UK is illegal. It's been a huge topic of conversation recently for Dartmoor, where we were heading to next. So we decided to invite travel writer and environmental hobbyist Damien Gabet for a ride in the Sidecar, so we could get his thoughts on access to land and adventure in the UK.
You know, like, there's not an inch of England that hasn't been accounted for in some different way, obviously over the centuries. It's a small country with a lot of people in it, and there's next to no wilderness left. In fact, in England, there isn't any. In Wales, you've got the Black Mountains. That's where I'd go if I wanted adventure. Or the Cairngorms in Scotland. So you can still have a great time, but it's a different iteration of adventure, isn't it?
Is it though, I guess it's hugely subjective, but you've got I don't know, is it kind of like unconscious bias in the sense of we're from the UK, so we have that thing. But if you came here from overseas, you may well be there
with fresh eyes.
Great,
And do you know what? That's a good observation actually, because I think with lockdown that sort of happened for me. Like, I was going through these tiny woods next to where I lived. Didn't know whether I was allowed to go in them or not, but so this is amazing. I am ensconced by nature here. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to touch some leaves, I'm going to look at some trees, I'm going to do some breath work, maybe jump in that water over there, and whilst there's no danger of death, I think there's still you know, that kind of connection to nature and the awe that it inspires, and therefore the kind of positive effects it has to your mental and physical well-being, we can still get that.
Yeah.
100%. I can give you a first-hand account of many instances where that's happened. And actually, what I'm starting to do now with my travel writing is the legacy of not travelling much is, for me, is, zeroing in on what is wonderful about the UK.
Damien's take on adventure suggested he felt it was harder to come by in the UK, but that didn't mean it was not possible to appreciate the UK outdoors. Ultimately, we left feeling adventure was open to the individual's interpretation. Over the past week, we'd travelled to places across the UK we'd never been to before. We'd seen destinations that were just as incredible as anywhere else, and we'd done things we'd never done either. Which for us, had always been at the forefront of any trip we'd taken on. As we headed back up north, it got us thinking about why we took on this trip in the first place.
So now we're actually 3 years on. We're a national charity. We're working with tens of thousands of bikers.
And I said stop overreacting, and then I looked down and I was crawling in them like a bush tucker child. There were ones you could see, like they were the size of a fingernail,